Since he was sworn in on January 20th, Donald Trump himself and the Trump administration really haven't had any good news whatsoever during their time in office. But this week, they finally got a piece of positive information, a good story for them to brag about. That story is the fact that in spite of all the evidence, Steve Bannon, one of Donald Trump's most trusted advisors, will not be prosecuted for voter fraud in South Florida. How great is that? You know, finally a positive, uplifting story about the Trump administration not necessarily screwing up the country. Here's the issue. Prosecutors in South Florida, Miami-Dade specifically, were looking into whether or not Steve Bannon was actually a resident there when he registered to vote and proceeded to vote in that county. Turns out, as best prosecutors can tell, no. He was not a resident. He bought a property but did not reside there. He had no intention of residing there, and under Florida law, that would be considered voter fraud. But they said because of the way Florida law is written and because it is so vague and antiquated, they're just not going to bring charges against him because it would be likely he could get off on a technicality, even though they have enough evidence that they say they could easily get a prosecution. So, all of those voter fraud that Donald Trump was talking about, again, it literally came from within his cabinet, okay? Steve Bannon committed voter fraud. These prosecutors were pretty clear about the fact that they are 99% sure he committed voter fraud. They're just not going to prosecute him. So at this point for the Trump administration, yeah, take whatever you can get. This is a victory for you. Steve Bannon's not going to prison for voter fraud. You know, that thing that you made into a massive issue to make up for the fact that you lost the popular vote by about 3 million votes. If only we could find more members of the Trump administration who committed voter fraud, then maybe we could start adding those numbers up to that 3 to 5 million that you claim voted illegally. But I guarantee you, the people that you're going to find who voted illegally, all you have to do, Donald Trump, is look down your hallway. Because they're all up and down there. We've had Bannon. There's evidence that Ivanka voted at a state where she doesn't actually live. All kinds of stuff. The voter fraud, just like in a horror movie, is coming from inside the house. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you've done all those things, please check out all the videos below. Stay up to date with everything we do here at Ring of Fire.